Berserk baits, driving fish insane. So what can we do? This presentation divides the subject into 5 categories: proper live well management, the fizzing of deep caught bass, the safe removal of deep hooked fish, proper net choices, and proper handling of bass. Proper live well management. Use cooler water. Cooler water holds more oxygen and decreases fish metabolism. By using ice, we can reduce the temperature. Store-bought ice and tap water may have chlorine in it, but we can use additives to remove that. The goal should be to reduce the temperature of about 10 degrees. Here is a chart by In Fisherman magazine that shows the effect of temperature and altitude on the content of oxygen in parts per million in the water. This graph shows that 60-degree water at sea level has about 10.1 parts per million of oxygen in it. But if we increase that temperature to 90 degrees, the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water plummets to 7.3. A fish can live on 7.3 parts per million of oxygen. However, if it's only in 15 gallons of water, it has less time in which it can do that. It will use that oxygen up in a much brisker fashion, and it becomes a problem much quicker. So the goal is to keep the temperature down. Not much we can do about altitude, but if we're at a higher altitude, we should be even more aware of these problems. Also, using aerators or recirculators or other additives that we'll discuss, maybe we can increase that number as well. Commercial additives like sure-release or even salt improve fish health by decreasing stress or eliminating harmful contaminants like chlorine. Hydrogen peroxide in the correct dose can also add much-needed oxygen to depleted live wells. Not many people do this, but this would be a possible problem-solving thing, that if you were having a live well breakdown or you knew you were going to be fishing in incredibly hot water, you could increase your oxygen content by adding 1 ounce of hydrogen peroxide for every 3 gallons of water. This gives you a nice boost of oxygen to the water, and other ways to do it would be using aerators, recirculating pumps, or even they used to, let's say you're using an augmented, like a kind of an ice chest kind of deal, where you're not even using your main live well. People have used clay pots that can harbor oxygen in the pores of the pots to add oxygen to the water. These are just all ideas. Many of them you're not going to be able to use or won't need to use, but these are just informational things that you can add to your ability to protect the bass. Fizzing deep caught bass. Bass caught more than 15 deep may not get a chance to equalize the pressure in their swim bladder, which is a sac of air in their bodies, and if that sac of air can't relieve the pressure, they go belly up. This impedes their ability to breathe and wears them out, and eventually will lead to their death. Fish released may no longer have the strength to return to the original depth to relieve that pressure. So what we can do is we can use a needle to decompress that swim bladder by puncturing the fish and letting the air out, or using crates that can be weighted to return them to depth. Well, not many people are going to carry around weighted crates with them, and certainly less likely on a tournament where time is a major factor. So fizzing them is a quick and easy way to do it, and if you just commit to doing it, you'll see how easy it is and how well the fish respond to it. Studies show that the fish mortality is very acceptable using this method and is in the benefit of the bass. Here's a picture of the bass anatomy. Take special note of the dorsal fins, the spiny dorsal and soft dorsal fins. The point at which, the in-between point between the one and the other, is one of our landmarks. If we draw a line straight down, and then we draw a line from the anal vent to intersect that line, that's going to be our insertion point. If you notice, the pectoral fins kind of point right towards it, and that's what I tend to use. You'll also notice the lateral line. You're going to be just under the lateral line, about 3 or 4 scales under the lateral line, and you're going to insert the needle under one of the scales. In the lower picture you can see what we're aiming for, the swim bladder. It's a large organ that will be in a fish that's having a problem. It will be taking up a lot of the space of the body. This side presentation is one of the ones that has the most success for the most bass, and also avoids most of the really sensitive organs like the liver or gills. Here's a larger picture where it's blown up just a little bit better so you can see it. This is a slide for marking the spots for the proper needle insertion using various methods. You can see the dark shaded area in the center of the fish is the swim bladder we're aiming for. The TP and W standard recommended location is what we've been aiming for with our what we've discussed so far, but there are other recommendations that wind up accomplishing the same thing as far as attack of putting a needle on the fish. Here's a picture of proper needle placement, and this is the correct angle, a 45-degree angle back towards the head of the fish. This is what's going to avoid all the organs, and you're going to have the best likelihood of piercing the swim bladder. And once you've pierced the swim bladder, you're going to submerge the fish, and you're going to see the bubbles. This is your reassurance that A, you've done it correctly, and 2, the fish needs to be in the water. Don't squeeze the fish, because this isn't a balloon situation. You're not going to force more air out of it. You're just going to damage internal structures. When the ultimate goal is to get the fish to swim upright and have control of its own depth again, I have in one situation needed to fizz a fish twice because I didn't get it done all the way the first time. But generally when the bubbles start to slow down, you're going to get pretty close to equilibrium with the fish, and that should be close enough. Now, in a discussion that I had on another tournament, I was informed that the side method doesn't always work. Well, I've never had that experience, but I was told that when you have incredibly large fish, which I would know nothing about, that the side method, because of all the extra meat of the fish, the needle doesn't reach the swim bladder. I think this is mostly a function that maybe we just don't have long enough needles. I carry actual hypodermic needles, which are quite long, and I have every confidence that I'll be able to get the job done. But if you find yourself in a situation, here's an alternate method. It's through the mouth. 1/8 inch above the gullet is what you're aiming for, and you're basically aiming straight for the fish's tail, and you're going to hit the swim bladder just as easily. However, as you can see, not only do we have a fish that might react to our having our hand down its gullet, we're also going to have much closer proximity to the liver, the heart, and the gills. So a lot of the anatomy here is sensitive, and so in the average bass this isn't necessarily the recommended location. However, you know, if this is how you know how to do it and you can do it successfully, that's what counts. Next subject is deep-hooked fish. Well, over the years there have been a lot of opinions about what to do, and I'm sure over the remaining years there's going to be more opinions. This is one way of removing a hook if you don't want to leave your hook in the fish. When you leave hooks or soft plastics in a fish, inevitably it's going to interfere with digestion. Over a very short period of time, however, the hook will wear out the area that it's in, and the hooks do fall out eventually. However, I've caught at McClure several bass that have had hooks in them, and the fish can be skinny and malnourished, and I tend to try to remove these hooks and have had good luck doing them. This is one method by In Fisherman magazine where they show a hook being removed. Basically, you pull the line and you get the eye of the hook to come out of where it's been swallowed. And then what you do is you rotate the hook so the eye is facing back into the fish, and what happens is it pulls the barb out of the mouth. You may need to go through the gills to achieve this, angle, or maybe you can use pliers to achieve this angle. I tend to try to get the hooks out of the fish, so this is just one method to do it. This is available online repeatedly, because this has been a very popular subject. Different nets have different properties. If at all possible, grabbing the fish by its mouth and putting it in the live well is probably the least dangerous thing for the fish. But if you're going to use a net, which a lot of the tournament guys do, you want to use one that's got rubber coating and the correct sized holes and the correct size for the fish. The cheap little rope nets tend to rub off all the slime and tend to be the worst thing you can do for the fish. Also, things like avoiding having them flop on the rug of your boat is probably the worst thing. So all this stuff is just food for thought. If you can use the proper equipment, you're going to protect the fish's slime coating and prevent ulcerative wounds. We've all caught fish with ulcers on them, and this is kind of where they come from. Infections after handling issues. This is how you basically properly hold a bass. You can hold it by its mouth, but you have to actually support its weight. If you dangle a fish, especially horizontally by the jaw, you're levering the jaw and you will break it. And that'll cause the fish to have feeding problems and probably kill it. Please don't scream at your bass. Here's John Myers this year at Don Pedro, catching one of the kind of bass that we want to keep around. And this is Rich Hale at Tulloch. Thank you for watching our presentation. If you have any ideas to add to this subject, we're more than willing to listen. And if we could all help each other out, that would be great.